The Israelites are portrayed as the holy, chosen people of God, while the rest of us are the Gentiles. We're the peasants that need to be converted in order to be accepted by God. But is this true? Or did the ancient Israelites just create this narrative on their own? Now, before you start yelling, "Burn the witch!" or "You're a blasphemous atheist," just hear me out, okay? Well, Yahweh was originally a Canaanite deity who was worshipped alongside other Canaanite deities like El Elyon, Asherah, and Baal. And this is a historical fact. Don't argue with me, argue with your mama. And after you're done arguing with your mama, then go ahead and check out my video about the Canaanite origins of the Bible. Now, Yahweh was a local god worshipped by a small group of people who would then later leave and start calling themselves Israelites. These Israelites took Yahweh with them. These group of people then started writing books, stealing stories from surrounding regions such as Babylon and the Canaanites, and decided to start boosting themselves up and calling themselves the chosen people of God. And if you believe in the Bible, then I apologize if I'm offending you. However, there are countless of stories in the Bible that seem to mirror or mimic stories from mythology that have came centuries and sometimes thousands of years before the stories in the Bible were even written, or even thought about for that matter. If I were to write a book that was a complete ripoff of the Harry Potter series, and I just changed the setting, changed a couple names, changed a couple dates, you guys would not give me the benefit of the doubt. You guys would call me a fraud. So don't be hypocritical. Now, it's only my opinion that the Israelites were a bunch of frauds. And before I start getting hate, I just want to make it very clear that I am not an atheist. I just don't believe that the Bible is an accurate representation of God because it's been so heavily touched and edited and just has a lot to do with men. However, many atheists or agnostics will say that God is hypocritical due to the many contradictions in the Bible itself or the actions of God. But I barely see anybody criticizing the Israelites themselves or calling them out. Was God actually hypocritical, or was he just a scapegoat? For example, the Israelites in the Bible, time and time again, they claimed that God was the one that told them to start waging wars and taking over lands and killing people. In the book of Joshua, they were supposedly commanded by Yahweh to conquer Canaan and completely wipe out everybody that lived there. Men, women, children, and even babies. Now, does that sound like the actions of a just and merciful God? Or were the Israelites just using God as a scapegoat to justify their conquest and brutality? Now, the violent actions in the Bible done in the name of God may lead many wondering. If God is supposed to be all-powerful and all-loving, why does he seem to condone such violence and even sometimes command such violence? Well, riddle me this. When 9/11 happened and the individuals behind it claimed that they were doing it in the name of God, or Allah, no one blamed God for the misfortunes that these events bring. Instead, it incited unjustifiable hate and racism towards Middle Easterns of Muslim faith. Until this day, these people still get discriminated against and sometimes even harassed. But when the Israelites do acts of legit terrorism, God gets all the blame, and he's so horrible. Oh my goodness, you see him? Look at what he did, as if it was God himself that came down and started killing people. Now, before you start yelling at me, yes, I do know in the Old Testament that he did start coming down and doing some questionable things, but we'll get into that in another video. We're not talking about that right now. Now, I do have to shift a highlight on Yahweh. Why does he allow evil things to happen in the world? Why doesn't God stop things like child abuse and domestic violence and other really bad things that happen and other forms of suffering? And Christians are going to argue with me and say, he gave us free will. It is not his place to intervene. Or people say, God allows bad things to happen because of free will. Oh, Jesus. But here's where things get really hypocritical. If it isn't God's place to intervene because of free will, then what about the whole promised land thing? And wasn't he intervening when he ordered the Israelites to commit mass killings? Why did God command the Israelites to kill people who chose not to worship him? Wasn't it their free will to worship gods that weren't him? By God ordering the Israelites to kill them due to their religious differences, isn't that directly interfering with their free will? If free will is so sacred, why does it seem like it only applies when it's convenient? Because it does. And because the God of the Bible is most likely not the one who ordered these mass killings. Let's be for real. The Israelites most likely wanted land to conquer and wanted to eliminate all religious and spiritual competition. Okay? Nothing more, nothing less. And when you read those books in the Bible where we talk about like the book of Job, I don't know, some people say Job, some people say Job. You know what I'm talking about. When we read stuff like that and, God just torturing this man just to prove that this guy is loyal to him, even though God's supposed to be all-knowing, and realistically he should have already known that he was going to be loyal without having to kill his kid and just bring this man through the ringer and give him trauma for years to come. Because guess what? That probably didn't happen. We're just gonna be real. It probably didn't happen. Okay? And I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate, but it just is what it is. It's my opinion. And this video isn't about pointing fingers at religion. It's really about just asking hard questions and just being logical. If Yahweh is all good, all-knowing, and all-powerful, then why are there so many contradictions in how people interpret his will? Why is it not straightforward without his actions contradicting what he says? So I think it's worth considering that maybe the way that God is portrayed, especially in violent and putting himself in a high place of authority and shit like that, maybe it has more to do with humans projecting their own desires for power and control onto him rather than divine truth. And maybe, just maybe, the Israelites, like many other groups throughout history, used God's name to justify their actions and avoid accountability. So here's the real question. Is God hypocritical, or are people hypocritical in the way that they use God? Well, I, for one, believe that it's absolutely 100% people. So for more thought-provoking content like this, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!